Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grizzly Truth Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by BetNow.eu. Use the promo code TRUTH100 at BetNow.eu to get a cashback bonus on your first deposit. I am your co-host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in from the FF Face-Off my other co-host, Anthony Servino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right. I was hoping we could talk about a bunch of trades, but that didn't happen. But today we will talk about what didn't happen, I guess, which will be a short conversation. And we will also talk quarterback rankings with our guest today, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
All right. So what was your take on the nothing that happened at the NFL trade deadline, Anthony?
I expected it to be busy. There were rumors flying around all day about all these marquee names being on the move, including a Jamal Adams to Dallas. Today, I saw a report saying that Devonta Freeman was almost a Lion and nothing happened.
Yeah. Sam?
Well, yeah, now with the age of Twitter and all that stuff, you see all these, this is a scenario that could happen, or this is a talk that they are having, and they just didn't go anywhere yesterday. There were all these names and all these players being thrown around, and we got absolutely nothing out of it.
Yeah, and the good thing is Jamal Adams didn't become a Cowboy, because if he would have, then he would have been the next Hall of Famer that the Cowboys chose. Correct, Anthony?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's look at a little NFL news. The Bengals, Sam, are benching Andy Dalton for Ryan Finley. Good move, bad move, or what's your take on this?
Professional tank job, because there's no way you can tell me Ryan Finley is better than Andy Dalton. I'm not going to believe that at all. This is a team admitting that this season is lost. They're 0-8. They're just going for the draft pick at this point, and they're probably preparing to move on from Andy Dalton.
Well, what do you think, Anthony?
I think the Bengals, they want to see what they have in Ryan Finley, because if they are in the running for a quarterback, then if you have something in Finley, then you don't draft a quarterback. But if you don't have something in Philly and you don't want to move forward with Andy Dalton, and it's clear that they don't, then you're going to take a quarterback with one of those first three, a top three pick that you're probably going to get. I don't think they pulled Dalton because they're afraid of winning games, because they're not winning games.
No, the Bengals have never been afraid to win games or not win games. I think what I take from it is there's a lot of guys they could have moved here, including A.J. Green. There was a lot of talk that the Saints were offering up some nice stuff for that. I think the Bengals do this 2 or 3 hours before the deadline because of one simple fact. It gets fans off their asses because they did nothing at the trade line to try to make their team better in the future, Anthony. So all the Bengal fans are happy now because Andy Dalton's benched. They all celebrate about that, and they forget that this team did nothing at the trade deadline to get more picks to try to improve this team for the future. Did we lose Anthony again?
No, you just broke
Maybe,
up.
I don't hear him.
Oh, but I think the Bengals did this, as I said, because they did nothing at the trade line for the future. And they make Ryan Finley the quarterback a couple hours before, and fans just kind of forget about that other stuff, like the trades. I mean, you've got why would you not do this, Anthony? Why would you not name Andy Dalton the backup and Ryan Finley the starter on Monday and then try to move Dalton?
That's a hell of a question. I think the bigger screw job move is that yesterday was Andy Dalton's birthday.
Okay, he's not 12 years old. It's not like he was a party with all these
Yeah,
buddies.
but
I
mean, that's not cool. You could have done it any other day.
Well, how about this? This is what's not cool. Andy Dalton's going to catch all the heat for this, but this all started, the downfall of Andy Dalton started when this team was too cheap to re-sign Zeitler and Whitworth. And, you know, they offered Whitworth about the same, and Zeitler about the same as other teams offered him, instead of going a little bit above to keep those guys here. And I think in the end, Sam, that was the downfall of that. Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, letting them move on. And this team just continuously does stupid things to keep from being able to be successful.
Yeah, but this has been the narrative with the Bengals in the past, too, because Carson Palmer had the same
on my last night.
What was that,
Carson
Sam?
Palmer had the same complaint. I said Carson Palmer had the same complaints about Cincinnati when he left, was that the organization was not willing to invest in winning. They weren't willing to spend the money on star players to retain key players of the organization. And this has been the narrative of Cincinnati moving forward. It continues to be the narrative. They're not really going to be a contending team until they change that and spend the money on good players.
Well, when Palmer did that and they moved him out of here and they drafted Dalton, for a few years it seemed like they were doing what Palmer always wanted them to do. And then they stopped doing it again. So I think that if you're a Bengals fan and you think Andy Dalton was the problem, I think you're an absolute idiot.
You know, Mike, I talked about this Andy Dalton benching on my show on the FF Face-Off last night. And if you look at his career in the first 5 years, they were all winning seasons, 4 of which, after his rookie year, they were win seasons.
You there, Anthony? Anthony?
Did you get any of that?
No, it cut out.
You didn't get anything about him having his first 5 years in the league were all winning seasons, 4 of which double-digit wins?
Yeah, that's where it cut off. And people forget in 2015, he was one of the top 2 or 3 candidates to be the MVP. He was like 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, or even less when he got hurt that year against the Steelers.
You know, if you put the talent around Andy Dalton, he can be a successful quarterback.
Yeah, and you can't say that about every quarterback that's a starter in the NFL. And I think that if you would have sent him to Chicago, you probably could have got some decent draft picks for him, because right now, I mean, the Bengals have always screwed with quarterbacks that were good. They screwed with Carson Palmer. I mean, Kenny Anderson was a guy who 1978, 79, 80, the Bengals continually tried to find a replacement for him. And they drafted the throwing Samoan Jack Thompson out of Washington State in 1979 with the first pick. That didn't work out. And then 2 years later, the Bengals were in the Super Bowl because of Kenny Anderson. So the Bengals are cheap. And if Ryan Finley looks even above average, I think it's a way for them to not have to draft a quarterback high next year and pay a quarterback a lot of money.
But if Ryan Finley is above average, why would you go draft a quarterback? Wouldn't you rather them go build the team around Finley? Because if he, what if Finley play? What are you expecting out of him?
What do I expect out of Finley?
A Kyle Allen type of player where he can go win games without putting up big numbers. If he does that, what do you do?
To me, I don't know about you, Sam, but if I'm the first pick in the draft, I don't give a damn who my quarterback is. I'm picking Chase Young.
I think Chase Young's probably the most surefire player in the draft in terms of talent. But we've seen this happen in the past where teams will trade up like crazy, or teams will scramble, and they'll overdraft quarterbacks up at the top. And that's just what they do. The Bears did that when they took Trubisky, and that's obviously been a terrible mistake. So with Cincinnati, obviously Chase Young, in my opinion, I think he should be the top player in the draft. But I would not put it beyond the Bengals or the Dolphins to go up there and take a quarterback and make a risky decision.
Yeah, and it's a risky decision because I don't think there's any quarterback in this college draft that's a surefire going to be a stud. I have questions about all of them. I usually do, at least about most of them. But when I look at this in the history of the Bengals, with the smallest scouting department in the NFL, there's nothing here that makes me think they're going to make the right choice anyways, Anthony.
Only time will tell. I know you're not a big, Zach Taylor guy, so...
Opie Taylor. Remember, we don't refer to him by his given name. He is Opie until further notice. Because he is 0-8. And there's Bengal fans out there. I got a friend who's posting, see, this shows that, Opie Taylor is now in charge because he's doing what he wants. And I guarantee you, he got a call probably about noon yesterday from Mike Brown or Katie Blackburn saying, your new starting quarterback's Ryan Finley. Announce it and act like it's your idea. Because that's how things run in Cincinnati. And the fact is this, you could have got probably a first or a second round pick for A.J. Green. You could have got a second or a third for Andy Dalton. I mean, I would have moved Geno Atkins also, Sam. I'd have moved Carlos Dunlap. I'd have got them all out of here and just tried to rebuild this from scratch.
No, I'm totally with you. At this point, in that division, when you're 0-8 and you're below the Cleveland Browns, who are playing terrible this year with Baker Mayfield at quarterback, there's no reason to hold on to those veterans. I just don't understand that. They're not going to be around when the team is good. The next time the Bengals are a winning program, you won't have Geno Atkins, and A.J. Green will probably still be on IR or something like that. So, for me, there's no reason to hold on to these guys.
So A.J. Green's not going to re-sign in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They're not bringing him back after.
Which is why the hell didn't they move him?
Because they're the
exactly.
Bengals.
Like,
of everything, that is the most puzzling.
Well, how about this? What if A.J. Green is just awesome when he comes back and makes Ryan Finley look better than he is, and then you don't have to draft a quarterback at the top of the draft? Because really, what I would do is everything I just said with all those trades, and then I would probably take that number 1 pick and trade it down. But once again,
get more players.
Yeah, I mean, we did this. We looked at this a week or two ago on the Bengals Weekly show that I do with Joe Kelly, who played for the Bengals Super Bowl team. And we just Googled the Bengals coaching or scouting staff. They have 4 full-time scouts. There's 8 guys in their scouting department. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who are considered a mom-and-pop shop, have 25 with 12 scouts. The Cleveland Browns have 41 people in their scouting department and 24 scouts. The Bengals have 8 in the entire department. You can't compete there, which is why when you look at the Bengals draft, usually 90% of those guys are guys that you see on TV all the time, or Mel Kiper loves, because that's how the Bengals draft their players. They go off what they see on ESPN. So, let's get off the...
When you have 4 scouts, you can hardly blame them, though. So you have that few people trying to cover the entire country. It's going to be hard for them. They're like, I don't blame those guys, but I do blame the Bengals for being cheap and not putting the money into their department or their organization to be able to bring in the best talent possible.
But how about this? It's just like you don't blame, Marvin Lewis or Opie Taylor. I mean, you know coming in what this job entails. So if you want to win, why would you come here? And see, that is the problem why the Bengals have a horrible coaching staff. It took them like a month and a half to get somebody to agree to be the defensive coordinator because nobody wanted to come here because it's a hellhole. It's like being the New York Jets. You know, it's the Detroit Lions. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. These are the same teams, the Cleveland Browns. They're the teams that always screw things up. And even when they get a team that's really good, something stupid happens and they come up short. And then a year or two later, you're right back down at the bottom. Anything else you want to talk about news-wise, Anthony, before we move on to the quarterback rankings? Did we lose Anthony again? Anthony?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. All right. I guess any other news you want to talk about, Sam?
I think they're moving Joe Flacco to IR in Denver, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like he was. I know yesterday they said he was out 5 to 6 weeks at least. You think he's moving him to IR because he won't shut up, or what?
I mean, I can't blame them, honestly. Like they could have won that game. They probably. I don't blame Joe Flacco at all. The play calling that's going on there and everything that's going on in Denver right now. I mean, I'd be frustrated if I was Joe Flacco.
Well,
so
you basically.
I do expect them to probably.
You've got a coach who plays like he's afraid to lose the game more than trying to win the game.
Exactly. But you shouldn't be because you're Denver right now. You're 2-5, and you're probably not going to catch the Chiefs. You're at the bottom of the AFC West. I mean, you've got to play to win games. You got to take some risks here and there. I don't blame Joe Flacco for being frustrated.
Well, you're being very positive when you said you're probably not going to catch the Chiefs. I don't know that the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos are going to win another game. If they do, it's not going to be one or two, more than one or two, because I think that, Fangio's lost his team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, once you lose, Flacco's never been like a very vocal guy, but you lose Joe Flacco, who's always been kind of tolerant, I guess you could say, and you're moving Brandon Allen to your starting quarterback spot, I don't see any goodwill from the team going to the coach at this point.
Yeah, but in Flacco's defense, he was always quiet before because he had a competent head coach.
That's true.
All right, let's go ahead and look at your quarterback rankings. Hopefully Anthony will hook back up here in a second. Number 1 is a change at the top. Aaron Rodgers, Sam.
Yeah, Rodgers has had a good couple of weeks here. And early in the season, he was always kind of floating in that 4 to 5 spot. He had decent weeks. He hadn't really turned it on and kind of put that Aaron Rodgers twist on things. And now the last couple of weeks, especially without Devontae Adams, he's had some very good games. The team is winning. They're starting to look like they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I think the key here is without Devontae Adams, because that had to be a major concern when they lost Adams. Rodgers is, 23 for 33, 305 yards, 3 touchdowns last week. 2 and 3, you got Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. I think it's safe to say that Rodgers, Wilson, and Brady, that will be the top 3 probably the rest of the year unless one of them gets hurt.
Yeah, I think so. 'Cause we have Wilson, who had not a bad game. We've had 2 decent games in a row. So he's kind of hanging in there. And then Brady's just Brady at this point. Brady will go out there with that defense. He's always going to look good. He's not going to turn the ball over too much. And they're going to continue to win games. So it's hard to knock Brady down from the top 3.
Well, my only question is what happens when the competition gets tougher in the second half of the season? Because I don't think that defense is really good. We don't know how good, though, because they haven't really played a big-time offense.
The 49ers are the same way in the NFC.
Yeah, and I think you can run on them.
It'll be interesting to see what they do from now, but I can only go on what they have done so far. But it is going to be very interesting to see if there's anything that's undefeated by week 16 or 17 at this point.
All right, number 4, Deshaun Watson. I disagree with that because I would have Drew Brees ahead of him. Drew Brees at number 5.
Yeah, a little bit of that is Drew Brees coming back after missing a bunch of weeks. So I slotted him in there at 5. So I didn't want to put him too high to start off. But he's definitely going to move up here, I think, because Drew comes in here, and Drew's always been a consistent quarterback. He's thrown more interceptions this year than the last 2 years or so. But he gets those 3 touchdowns right away. It looks fresh. And Teddy Bridgewater did a great job filling in for him, but you can never replace Drew Brees.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson played well. But now we're at a point where we expect Deshaun Watson to be a beast all the time. But 3 touchdowns, 46 rushing yards. Number 6, you've got Kirk Cousins. Number 7, Matt Stafford. Number 8, Derek Carr.
And the big one here for me is Kirk Cousins. Oh, go ahead.
I don't really disagree with any of that. The only thing here is I think Carr maybe should be higher. I don't think Carr is working with a lot here. And the thing that blows my mind about Carr is when you look on social media, all the Raider fans that think that when they lose, it's always Derek Carr's fault no matter what. Raider fans kind of remind me of Bengals fans with Dalton.
Yeah, it's also in the national media sometimes because people turn and point at Carr. But he's tied for the league lead right now in completion percentage. He's completing 72.1% of his passes, the same as Kirk Cousins. So he's doing everything he can to win with this team. It's not his fault. He just doesn't have that star player. He's got Darren Waller at tight end, who's very good. But he doesn't have the guys on offense or on defense right now to be winning games against good teams. I mean, he's hanging in there, though.
Yeah, and I'll give you this. When you look at Derek Carr and the Raiders, they're 3-4 right now. This game against the Lions between him and Matt Stafford coming up is huge because whoever wins that game, I think, has got a legit shot to make the playoffs, especially if it's the Raiders, because the Raiders, after this home game against the Lions, get a home game against the Chargers and a home game against the Bengals. I mean, they could be sitting at 6-4 here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, the Chiefs are only at 5-3 right now, so it's not like they're out of that division race. If the Chiefs botch a few games down the road here, Oakland might actually jump them. I don't anticipate that happening, but Oakland certainly is hanging in there in the AFC West.
Yeah, and when you talk about the Chiefs, I think if the Chiefs beat Minnesota this week, I think they're going to run away with the division. But they've lost, 3 home games? This is going to be a fourth home game they're playing against Kirk Cousins and a really good Minnesota team. And the thing about Minnesota is they can run the ball, and I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to run it against them. So this is a game Minnesota and Kirk Cousins could easily win.
Yeah, especially because Minnesota and Kirk Cousins are on a hot streak right now. Kirk has put together, I think, 4 weeks in a row now. They've won 4 games in a row, and he's been on fire in terms of completing the ball, a high percentage. Stephon Diggs, who was a little uncomfortable, a little upset at the very beginning of the year, he's getting plenty of touches now. And Dalvin Cook is still healthy, still putting together one of the best years for a running back this year. So in my opinion, I think the Vikings are also a legitimate threat here to actually go in there and beat Kansas City, especially because you got Harrison Smith and Everson Griffin, Daniil Hunter on defense. You've got playmakers on that side of the ball. So it's going to be very interesting. That's a pretty premier game I want to watch.
All right, next up, number 9, Dak Prescott. I think that's way too high, especially since he's 1-3 in his last 4 games. I would actually put Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz both ahead of him.
Yeah, I had Dak at 8 last week. This was his bye week. He moved back 1 spot to 9. And like I said a little here in the bio, he hasn't really beaten anybody. The team's 4 wins that come against opponents who are 7-23, and their losses have come against teams that are 15-8. So they're losing to 500-level teams, and they're beating teams that are just at the bottom of the league. So for me, Dak Prescott's on shaky ground right now. He hasn't had a terrible season as an individual, but the Cowboys as a whole for me are a fake team in my opinion. They're a team that when it comes down to it, if they make the playoffs, are probably looking at a first-round exit.
All right. What about Jacoby Brissett and Carson Wentz? Because I think Wentz has not played great, but he's played well. And I think the big thing, and you put this in your article, he's not making crucial mistakes like a guy like Josh Allen. Jacoby Brissett struggled last week, but still got the win.
Yeah, Carson Wentz, and we got to remember, too, this game in Buffalo, there was something like 20 to 30 mile-per-hour winds. There was some kind of crazy weather going on down there, so they were running the ball a lot. But Wentz still put up 172 yards and a touchdown, 35 rushing yards. He's a guy, in my opinion, who just does what his team needs him to do. It's not always pretty. He doesn't always complete a lot of passes. He sometimes has some mistakes where he just lobs the ball out of bounds. But Wentz is a guy who fights hard to win. And I think he probably has a higher ceiling than Dak Prescott. And he's actually more careful with the ball, in my opinion, which is something that I value a lot when I look at these quarterbacks. As you mentioned, I don't trust guys like Josh Allen because they turn the ball over so often. I think Wentz is good with the ball. And then for Jacoby Brissett, he's kind of a guy who goes up and down. So we look at week 7, he had 4 touchdown passes and over 300 yards. And then this past week, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but just 202 yards, 34 rushing yards, and a fumble loss. And they had to rely on Abden Terry to get a field goal against the Denver Broncos at the very end. But a decent quarterback, he just hasn't had that consistently great stretch going through a couple of games.
All right. Now, how do you move Jared Goff from 19 to 12? I mean, basically that was Cooper Kupp should be number 12.
Yeah, pretty much. The issue really is the quarterbacks who are below him. There's Gardner Minshew and Ryan Tannehill. I think you might argue should be above him. But once you get behind that, you got Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jimmy Garoppolo. There's some guys down there I don't trust. So the issue for me really isn't that Jared Goff played great so much as so the quarterbacks below him have been shaky or had some tough weeks. Because in my opinion, once you get past the Jacoby Brissett level, there's a bit of a drop. And the quarterbacks become more of a guys who have one really good week and then turn around the next week and might throw 2 or 3 interceptions and just have a bad week.
Yeah, and Tannehill, I think he's a better option than Mariota, but he did win 2 home games against 2 teams that weren't great. Both games were close. So I think it's safe to say we won't really know about Tannehill till he goes on the road and plays somebody.
Yeah, I do give props to the Titans for making that switch, though. I think a lot of people saw that coming when they picked up Tannehill, especially with Mariota struggling the last couple of years. The question is now, what do you do moving forward if you're the Tennessee Titans? How do you manage this going into next year? But that's going to be interesting.
I think a lot of that's according to how he finishes this year. I mean, if all of a sudden they make the playoffs, then you've got your quarterback. If they don't, then you have a decision you have to make.
Yeah, and that's one they're probably not going to enjoy making because it's some big repercussions if you decide to roll with him or decide not to roll with him. Because you can either look really smart or look really stupid.
Yeah. All right, Lamar Jackson, you've got number 15. I think a lot of those questions, one way or the other, are going to be answered this weekend when he goes and plays the New England Patriots.
Yeah, we're finally going to get to see him against a playoff caliber team with a great defense. I think they'll be able to counter some of his run plays. They have some athletic linebackers and just playmakers in New England who will be able to stick with Jackson a little bit. Because once you take away his run, I want to see if he can throw the ball. Because he's won games by running the ball, but I want to see if you take away his ability to run against a good team and make him throw the ball. I want to see if he can actually do it. Because he threw the ball early in the year against some really bad teams, but he has not done it against a really good team yet.
All right, number 16, Kyler Murray. Number 17, Jimmy Garoppolo. Number 18, Andy Dalton, who will no longer be on this list anymore.
Yes.
Garoppolo, his team keeps winning, but it's more of his team. There still has to be some concerns there. Kyler Murray, I think the impressive thing, and you put it on here, he's a rookie quarterback that's won 4 straight games without throwing an interception. His numbers weren't terrible, but he didn't make plays. But his decision-making has been good so far.
And especially when you contrast that with Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins, who are basically turnover machines, you have to appreciate Kyler Murray. He's actually gone out there, shown some poise, has not made the horrible mistakes we've seen a lot of other guys make. Especially look at last year's quarterback class. Look at Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen, who are just turning the ball over at an incredible rate, all of them. I think Josh Allen might be the only quarterback who has more touchdown passes from that group than interceptions. I'm not even sure about that. So when you look at the ability to keep the ball for his offense, to be able to move the ball down the field, sometimes not consistently yet, but the fact that he's not making turnovers shows he's already a little bit on another level than some of the rookies we've seen in the last 2 years.
How about this, though? The turnover thing could be from the fact that with Cliff Kingsbury there, he is running basically the same air raid offense that he ran when he was in college at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. So when you're running the air raid, the reads are a lot easier to make than what Daniel Jones is having to make in New York.
That's true. That's a little bit of the situation. I can't really ding Kyler Murray for being in a situation where he has an easier job determining where to put the ball. We won't really get to see, though, during his career at this point if he can make those more advanced reads, because I don't anticipate Cliff Kingsbury changing the offense.
No, he'll never have to make advanced reads in that offense. That's the great thing about that offense. So unless a team can – I mean, they've combated it because the Saints shut it down. They just didn't cause any turnovers. But with the way they run that offense, there's not going to be a whole lot of interceptions. The thing that's worrisome if you're a Baker Mayfield fan is they're basically running an offense very similar in Cleveland, and Baker's still throwing the ball to the other team.
Yeah, Baker's the guy. I don't entirely understand what he's doing because last year he had a decent year. I think he was definitely a little overhyped coming into the offseason. But he had put down a good foundation last year. Now he comes out this year. He's got 12 interceptions and only 6 touchdowns. I mean, that's like the Sean Kaiser numbers, if you remember, when he was with Cleveland. That's not good. That's not something you expect from a guy who went number 1 overall. I mean, that's worse than Jameis Winston ever has been. So I'd be kind of panicking if I'm in Cleveland right now. At this point, you're just waiting for next year.
Well, I think Cleveland's still going to win the division. Because
really?
I think
you feel like they're going to get the division?
I think the schedule is absolutely atrocious the rest of the year. And I think what happened last year is when they went on that run at the end of the season, if you look at it, they beat a bunch of bad teams. So I think there's a chance here they could get on a run, beating a bunch of bad teams, end up in the playoffs, get their brains beaten out in the playoffs, and then everybody in the offseason will talk about how they're going to win the Super Bowl next year. But the fact of the matter is this: when Baker Mayfield plays better teams, he throws interceptions at an alarming rate. Now, if he's playing against bad teams, the amount of talent they had can overcome his mistakes. And I still think Cleveland's got a shot to do something here if they win this week. Now, if they don't, and they end up 6-10, 7-9, they really need to reevaluate what they're going to do at the quarterback position.
I think they really need to reevaluate what they're going to do with the coach at that point if you end up at that level.
Well, I think they should have reevaluated that before they hired him.
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But this is Cleveland we're talking about. They don't actually do that.
Yeah.
They have to fail first before they decide, oh, wait, we made the wrong decision.
And then they'll make an even worse decision because they're Cincinnati North. Next up, Phillip Rivers, 19. Kyle Allen, 20. Josh Allen, 21. Kyle Allen, I mean, the 3 picks against a team that good when his offensive line's not very good does not surprise me. So I'm going to hold off judgment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I feel kind of bad moving all the way down there. I think he'll bounce back next week. But there's not much you can do when you've got Richard Sherman lining up on the opposite side of the ball, and you got Nick Bosa and DeForest Buckner and all those guys for San Francisco. And Kyle Allen, really, Christian McCaffrey had a decent game, but everyone else for the Panthers just got nothing. I mean, I can't blame Kyle Allen for that.
Yeah, they were just
I can't blame Josh Allen for losing to Philly, though, because that's a game where it's going to be a ground game. You're going to be running the ball a lot. And Josh Allen has that one fumble, and he's not completing a lot of his passes, and they end up losing to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are struggling. They have a terrible secondary in Philadelphia, and the Bills just don't take advantage of it, and they end up losing. I think that's a game they probably should have won.
All right, then you got Daniel Jones at 22nd, but Daniel Jones actually played really well this week.
Yeah, but it was against a secondary that's been allowing a ridiculous number of yards per game. I think the Lions actually are allowing the most passing yards per game of any secondary in the NFL right now. So it was against a terrible defense. He got the 4 touchdowns, but I mean, he's got 7 interceptions in 6 starts. It's not great. It's not bad. He's not working with a lot offensively right now. He doesn't have a lot of great.
You there, Sam? Sam? Oh, I think we lost Sam. Hold on here.
You there, Mike?
Yeah, you there? I don't know what happened. I was trying to call Anthony, and it just kind of dropped out. Go ahead. Sorry about that. We're talking about Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I was just going to say, played a really bad defense in the Detroit Lions. Really probably have to wait until the end of the season or next season to see for sure what Daniel Jones can do. Had some up and down weeks. Really, this is his first good week since that opening start against Tampa Bay in week 3. But maybe he can build on this and finish the season strong.
All right, next up, we go to Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub, I mean, for being a backup coming in, actually played pretty well in the game. Then we got Joe Flacco, Matt Moore. Matt Moore, I think, played really well. Flacco, of course, was hamstrung by a coach who's afraid to win. But let's talk about Schaub because he's a guy who played well.
Yeah, Matt Schaub played against the Seattle Seahawks. That secondary is not great for Seattle. But at the same point, when you put up 460 yards and you haven't started a game in 2 or 3 years, I have to give you props for that. Most people forget Schaub's actually from that 2004 draft class, the same one with Ben, Eli, and Rivers. And while he got chased out of Houston, he did have a couple of Pro Bowl years. Oh, hey there, Anthony.
Anthony's back. He's calling like on an ancient. We call him on an ancient line instead of the Skype because he had a power outage. You missed it because I ripped apart Dak Prescott forever. But go ahead. You got to finish, Sam.
I was saying Stubbs had a pretty good week. He's got good experience in the past. It's not like he's been a bad quarterback his entire career. He had some Pro Bowl years in there. He did have seasons where he can right through for a lot of yards. So this is a guy who's had experience. He's a pretty solid backup to have.
Anthony.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing over there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay.
It's storming really bad in South Jersey.
I'll quit whining. Living in South Jersey is nothing but a storm anyways. Number 24, Joe Flacco. What do you think about Baker Mayfield, Anthony? He's looking pretty good this year, huh?
I mean, he's one of the biggest disappointments, but should he really be considered a disappointment, or is he just a product of hype? Because Baker last year, he won a couple of games, but he played his best against teams like the Bengals.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're going with this. Too bad he didn't play the
No,
Cowboys.
I'm not
Get
going
back
anywhere.
on track.
It's true.
I
It's
know,
the
I'm
truth.
messing with you. But once again, that's what we talked about earlier. I mean, last year on that winning streak, they beat nobody that was any good. They just beat a bunch of bad football teams. Sam Darnold, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. There's got to be some concern here right now, Anthony, that Sam Darnold may not be the right guy in New York.
I mean, and now he's dealing with a thumb injury that Gase said he's going to play through. The offensive line is in shambles. They wanted to deal their running back, their wide receiver, their safety. Why are you even putting Sam Darnold in harm's way? Why not? I mean, this is a wasted season, and we knew this early on. This was going to be a wasted season for Sam Darnold. So I don't even know why you put him out there. It's just going to rattle him more.
Yeah, and when I look at this Sam Darnold, the other question is, what the hell were the Jets doing hiring Adam Gase?
Yeah, Adam Gase does not have a good record outside of playing with good quarterbacks. I mean, he's gotten nowhere in his career, really, with quarterbacks like Sam Darnold. He hasn't shown he's able to develop quarterbacks. He hasn't shown he's able to develop offenses. He hasn't shown he's able to win games. So I don't know why Adam Gase was the guy you chose to bring to New York, this huge market, and you're trying to rebuild this team. Why did you put it under Adam Gase? It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, the current general manager, to my knowledge, did not hire Adam Gase.
No.
They fired that general manager.
Well,
They
and
went
this
into
all
a-
goes back to what we talk about with the Bengals, Anthony. I mean, hell, the head's rotten in New York. I mean, Woody Johnson's the owner, and he's an idiot because if you're going to hire a GM, the GM should be able to bring in whoever he wants to be the head coach, shouldn't he?
No, but going back to the offseason, wasn't there another GM in, and then they hired Gase, and then they fired the general manager after they let the old general manager run the draft?
Yeah, well, that's
And then they brought in Joe Douglas.
It's kind of my point. I mean, the head is rotted in New York, just like it is in Cleveland, just like it is in Cincinnati, and that's why you get this screwed up mess all the time, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, it's a narrative for these teams, though. Like, this is something that always happens for these teams. Eventually, it comes back to the same situation over and over again, where suddenly you're looking up at the bottom, from the bottom, and looking at the rest of the league, going, "How did this happen? How do you end up wanting to trade away guys like Jamal Adams when he's clearly one of the premier safeties in the NFL, but you are so bad as a team and organization that you cannot build around him at all? It's pathetic, honestly."
Yeah, and when you look at this, you got to wonder if half this first round of the NFL draft this year coming up with the bust of Mariota, Winston, Trubisky, all these guys, you got to wonder if there's going to be like 15 quarterbacks picked in the first round this year, Anthony.
Well, that's why I think that teams like the Rams give away draft picks like they're worthless because there's no guarantee. So when you can acquire a known commodity like Jalen Ramsey, who cares giving away 2 firsts because there's no guarantee you're going to hit?
Yeah, especially.
That's why Dallas traded away a draft pick, a first-round pick for Amari Cooper, because you know Amari could play, whereas you can draft a wide receiver and he could be Corey Davis, who was the top 10. He could be John Ross. I like John Ross, so I'm wrong for saying that. But I like John
I don't like John Ross. I liked him when they picked him, but he can't catch.
Nelson Aguilar was a first-round pick. You don't know what you're getting, so trade away for a known commodity.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But once again, there are certain teams that usually draft pretty well, and there's certain teams that don't draft well. So if you're a team that doesn't draft well normally, you're probably better off to go with the known commodity anyways. But I think we made it through the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph, I still think the other kid's better than him, Anthony.
I don't mind Mason Rudolph right now.
Yeah.
I like the way he's playing.
Yeah, the Steelers aren't winning it.
Did you watch the first half of Monday night's game? Until the final 2 or 3 minutes, Mason Rudolph didn't look like he knew how to throw a football.
He's still developing, but he's winning games. He's throwing 2 touchdowns a game, except the one game where he got knocked out in Baltimore, and not a lot of interceptions, not turning the ball over.
But wait a second, because who's he beating? Because we just talked the same thing about Baker Mayfield and how Baker Mayfield looked good against bad competition.
Baker Mayfield was a top overall pick.
Yeah. What's that matter by now? We just established it doesn't matter where you're drafted. Mason Rudolph was the end of the first round?
No, he was later.
Was he a first-round pick?
No, I don't know. I don't even remember.
Third-round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tom Brady was a sixth-round pick.
Okay, not everybody's Tom Brady.
Yeah, but the point is this. You still have to judge him. I mean, he came out of Oklahoma State. He ran in basically an NFL, or similar to an NFL offense at Oklahoma State. So why wouldn't we judge him that way? I mean, what's the difference between judging him and Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield's had an extra year and doesn't look any better right now. And Mason Rudolph was a guy that a lot of people thought would be a late first-round draft pick. A lot of Steeler fans were mad because they didn't pick Rudolph at the end of the first round. And they ended up getting him anyways. But I don't know. I just don't like his hair, Sam. What do you think?
His hair is a problem, and to me, what he showed at the very start of that game against Miami, where he basically he sat in the pocket for 7 or 8 seconds and then threw a pick that was so blatantly obvious to, I think, Xavier Howard. He just literally threw it, and it wasn't even to the receiver, honestly. It was more to Xavier Howard than anyone. So for me, Mason Rudolph, I don't trust him throwing the ball down the field, honestly. I think that offense is being hindered by him more than helped. I think he's honestly in the same vein as Mitchell Trubisky. He might have a night where he puts up 2 touchdowns and 250 yards, but in the end, it doesn't really make a huge difference. He's a guy I don't trust to run an offense.
I agree with Sam. Anthony, anything else we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Did we cover all the news?
I think we did. Were you gone for that? Oh, yeah, because before we lost you, I asked you if there was any other news you wanted to talk about. So was there?
I'm just going to check the news wire right away. Sterling Shepard, I feel like we talk about him every episode. He's in a no-contact jersey at Wednesday's practice. O.J. Howard still sidelined, so he could be missing another game. Chris Herndon in another Jet that's banged up, limited at Wednesday's practice. And A.J. Green, there's your guy. He wants to be with the Bengals long-term and is open to an extension.
Yeah.
Is he kidding me?
No, he's not. He's a dude that wants to be here. And sometimes you get guys like that. There's just not that many.
I mean, is he a glutton for punishment?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, what do you think about Aqib Talib going to Miami?
That was a smart move at the contract, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
By the ramp.
I know Aqib Talib's done some bad things in his life, but has he done anything bad enough to be sent to Miami, Sam?
I don't think anyone deserves to be sent to Miami.
Charles Manson, Adolf Hitler. That'd be about it, right?
Pretty much.
All right. Let's see. The Patriots replaced Mike Nugent with Folk. The Arena Football League closes business operations. There you go.
Oh, they folded.
The Arena Football League did, it looks like.
Here's one. Brandon Cooks is going to see a concussion specialist. He suffered his second concussion of the year last week, and like Sterling Shepard, I think Cooks is going to miss a lot of time. Or he can even end up on injured reserve.
Yeah. Anything else for either one of you?
No, I think that's
I think
about
we've got
it.
everything.
All right, Sam, tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sam_Teets33. Feel free to check it out. I've got plenty of articles that go up all the time. Feel free to click on those and give it a follow.
All right, Anthony?
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. You can follow my show at the FF Face Off. You can find us on all the top social media and podcast platforms.
All right, guys, you can follow the Grilling Truth at Grilling Truth today at 3 o'clock Eastern. We will have the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show with myself and Ken Sterling as we'll look back at Indiana's thrilling 84-54 win over Gannon College last night in an exhibition game, so you won't want to miss that. Also at 5 o'clock Eastern today, we'll have the Cincinnati Bengals Weekly Show with Joe Kelly. At 8 o'clock, Indiana Football Weekly with Cole Hanna. At 9 o'clock, Robert Drummond with the CFL Pick'em Show. And at 10 o'clock tonight, the NFL Pick'em Show with myself, Matt Andruscavage, Brian Schmidt, and Scott Wilson. So make sure you check those out. And, of course, me and Anthony will be back tomorrow at noon. You can hear all of our shows pretty much anywhere on the Internet, but you can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, YouTube, Spreaker. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Sam Teets, Anthony Servino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.